Now we have a few minutes for questions and answers. And if anybody has any questions to Peter, maybe, or any question to any of the speakers this afternoon, now is the time.
Yes, first I will say thank you to all the speakers for a very, very interesting presentation. And to Åtne Vigfússon mentioned that we have to safeguard the food chain. And another goal is that we have to have enough food for the human population. And the fact is that the fish stocks are decreasing and the human population are increasing. So we have to do aquaculture, or we have to have aquaculture. And one comment is more comments than a questions, is that I agree and I hope that we in Faroe Islands will have more money for the investigate in the aquaculture and to investigate the environmental impact from the aquaculture.
Oh, I forgot to say that if we are particularly interested, one of the goals of the conference again was, with the future prospects, is to create the institute called TACIT, the Transatlantic Environmental Institute, I think it was called. What? Climate Institute, yeah. So if any of the questions and if you have any comments on how some of these experiences can be used in that connection, that's particularly interesting. But please feel free to ask any question you feel like. Yeah? No?
Yes, my name is Knud Andersen from the Society of Living Sea from Denmark. This is a climate conference too. And I wonder a little that we are speaking about this system about labeling of fish. Why we are not concentrate more about to make a climate labeling of fish products. It's very different, very much aims about labeling of fish. But the most important in our situation must be that we have a labeling for sustainable fishery in relation to the climate. And in that way we shall concentrate. We have, for instance, we have a Marine Stewardship Council. They are labeling fish, but they are not taking, they're not speaking about oil fuel consumption in fishery. And I think because of the serious situation we are in the world, we have to not only to make sophisticated systems, but to concentrate to make a communication to the consumer. We have to make it as a good image to have a low fuel consumption. And I think it's you, Peter, have spoken too little about this. And generally, it is more sophisticated than is necessary. It's very important to make a connection between the business and or industry and the scientists, and then the consumer, so they can make a pressure on the politicians, so we can change this. We cannot only make business; we have to do something in the world now, because of the situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter, I wonder if you have any comments. If I understand the question correct, is too complicated systems of measuring environmental load and too little climate. I wonder if you have any comment on that.
Just, yeah, there we are. Firstly, there's a difference between what actually happens and what the consumer wants to know. I certainly cannot claim to be an expert on labeling or on consumer preferences, but with respect to what happens, as this study I referred to pointed out, negative impact, they separate. This is a comparative study of, I believe, 7 research projects that went before it. And they said basically you can classify negative impact on 8 different areas. It's the abiotic depletion, that normally means use of non-renewable resources. That's one problem in itself. Acidification is another problem of the environment. Toxicity. Global warming is the one that you mentioned specifically, but this is only 1 out of 8. Eutrophication, the organic pollution of lakes and waters. Human toxicity, ozone layer depletion, photochemical oxidation. What this study has said is that the negative impacts are not only in one area. We can have products that have a fairly good score on the global warming scale, but might be very bad on toxicity or ozone layer depletion or something. So either we can, if you want to do labeling, you can either label these 8 areas separately, you can pick out those of them that you think the consumer is most concerned about, or you can just basically add them and get an overall score like we saw in this diagram. The other thing is that when we talk about complicated systems, I'm certainly not advocating complicated systems, but I'm saying if you want to solve this problem, and by you I mean mostly the industry, you need to do unique identification. There's very little useful that you can record if you do not take into consideration that the 1,000 or 10,000 boxes that you produce in one day will go to 20 different destinations with 10 different trucks and so many containers and so on. If you have any ambition of trying to document your degree of sustainability, you must start by giving each of the units a separate number and then record information associated with this number. This is not complex, but it's certainly necessary. If you don't do this, you can't even start to document your degree of sustainability.
I would like to thank you for the question about agriculture. I do not think that we need mass production of fish farms. I think that with my ideas of multi-species management of the wild fisheries, I think we can increase our production in due course, just like the marshmallow fellow did at school, by maybe 1 million metric tons. I think 1 million metric tons is roughly what we are producing today of salmon in the North Atlantic. I think that we can go a long way by proper, sustainable, long-term management, do the same with wild fish. And Iceland, Greenland, and the Faroes, our high standard of living comes from producing wild fish from pristine waters. I think that this should be our sort of first priority rather than agriculture. Thank you.